I will confess to you, I've never really been that much a fan of the Dark Phoenix saga. Here's why. I see the Dark Phoenix saga as the right story for the wrong team. I am always distracted by the fact that you have a brand like the X-Men and they are all about mutant rights, and they're all about genetic politics, and they're all about the destiny of an emerging species. And then suddenly a magical space firebird comes into play. Brand-wise, it makes very little sense. I don't know how else to say it. I've never ever been that taken up by the Dark Phoenix saga. Primarily due to the fact that Jean Grey is a very bland character. I don't give a shit about her. I don't know who really is that much of a Jean Grey fan and who can really specifically say, hey, why are you a Jean Grey fan? And of course they're always going to use Dark Phoenix as an example, because that's really the only story where she matters. I've always seen the Dark Phoenix as an Avengers story, really. I've always thought that the Avengers would have had an amazing legacy of consequences and fallout if Dark Phoenix were their story. I mean, it would make sense for the Avengers to have that story. They had already gone up against the Kree and the Skrull. Why not the Shi'ar? And furthermore, you have a space Viking on your team, so anything is fair game. The X-Men just don't do well outside their brand, and yet half the time, their most memorable stories have nothing to do with their brand, and that says volumes to how tricky the X-Men are in terms of brand management. Oh man, and then there's Breakworld, that alien, prophecy storyline Joss Whedon did. What does any of this have to do with oppressed minorities? We're being told over and over again, oppressed minority, oppressed minority. And yet every story that someone brings up to you about how great X-Men are has nothing to do with that. Nothing. It is a huge distraction to me when reading Dark Phoenix, and it becomes an even bigger distraction when you try to adapt it. You need the X-Men to be in a shared world for an adaptation of Dark Phoenix to make sense. Now, in the comic books, yes, it makes sense to a degree. There are alien races out there. There are magical blah blah crystals of power out there because they are part of the larger Marvel U. When the cartoon show in the 90s adapted Dark Phoenix, they had little cameo appearances by, I believe it was, Spider-Man, War Machine, and Thor, so it didn't seem so out of place. When non-comic book fans watched the Dark Phoenix miniseries with me, they were often scratching their heads, what the fuck does this have to do with mutants and mutant rights? I agree with you. What does it have to do? How does it make sense? And when they saw the other superheroes, it made sense to them. This is part of a broader world and so forth. When you adapt it in film form, especially the way 20th Century Fox did, it makes no sense. I mean, 20th Century Fox had all these characters that they owned, not just X-Men. They had the Fantastic Four characters, they even had King the Conqueror. And they could have, and they did want to plan a shared universe. And we talked to Mark Millar about a shared FF X-Men universe many years ago. Recently, additional plans came to light. However, they never did that. I mean, if you have a world where there's a time traveler named Kang the Conqueror, and you have Doctor Doom practicing magic, and you have Galactus, so of course the Shi'ar race and a magical space Firebird would make sense. However, the X-Men films don't even bother with the Shi'ar. They don't even bother with trying to mesh them in with the mutant continuity, or even try to mesh the Phoenix into the mutant continuity. Every time I do a Google search on should the Dark Phoenix saga have been another team's adventure, I often get random, and a lot of them too, comparisons between Scarlet Witch and Jean Grey, and depictions of Scarlet Witch as the Phoenix. And I think that's very interesting and very, very telling. I think a lot of people out there agree with me that the X-Men could have worked very, very well as an Avengers story. I mean, I can just imagine it right now. A Quinjet goes into space, Captain America does hand-to-hand combat with Eric the Red, creating some sort of grudge between them. Scarlet Witch tries to save the Quinjet from burning up in the atmosphere. The Phoenix comes to her, of course. Of course the Phoenix would come to her. It burns away, culls, parts of creation. Why do you not want to possess Scarlet Witch? Scarlet Witch's powers are essentially the power of luck, the power of probability. But really, it's the mutant power over magic. I mean, it's the mutant ability to control magic. That's really what she is. So why not have the Phoenix attracted to that? I mean, she is a walking nexus of all realities. The Phoenix is a singular entity, I believe, in Marvel Comics. There are multiple universes, but there's only one Phoenix. Why not? I mean, why not have the Shi'ar declare, okay, trial by combat. Captain America and Iron Man are trying to negotiate for the fate of Scarlet Witch with Lilandra. It would have been a great, great battle to behold. The Avengers versus the Shi'ar. And then, of course, poor Vision. Would Scarlet Witch die? Would he be blown up? Would she be holding his body? That's another interesting thing, too. You have a very famous couple on the Avengers. And Scarlet Witch is not unheard of. If you look back in hindsight, I'm surprised that Marvel keeps Phoenix firmly in the Jean Grey canon, firmly with the Jean Grey brand, because when you look at Scarlet Witch herself, you had the famous John Byrne Avengers West Coast Darker Than Scarlet saga, in which she went crazy, her powers heightened. She kind of had her own Dark Phoenix in a sense, being that she went crazy and her powers got heightened. And then, of course, came Brian Michael Bendis and Avengers Disassembled, and then came House of M. And I keep wondering to myself, why doesn't Marvel just say, fuck it, give her the Phoenix? I believe she's battled Jean Grey, when Jean Grey's had control of the Phoenix, or something like that. I mean, it just makes a lot more sense. The Phoenix really was just, I think Claremont and Byrne got bored, to be honest, doing political drama and so forth, and they just said, fuck it, let's do something cosmic. And Jean Grey's a very bland character, but I don't really give a shit because of that. I don't give a shit about her fate. I don't care what happens to her. If I were editor Jim Shooter, I would say, Claremont, Byrne, great job. You've made Dark Phoenix. Excellent. I'm giving it to the Avengers. I probably would have done that. Yes, it did well for the X-Men canon. It did well for sales. I get that. You love the story. Why not? I'm just saying it doesn't make any sense in regards to what the X-Men are all about, really. I think it should have just been an Avengers tale. I don't really care that much for Jean Grey. I think it always should have been a Scarlet Witch story. It would have certainly made a lot more sense as time went on for it to be a Scarlet Witch tale. I think it would have made a lot more sense going forward as a Scarlet Witch tale. Maybe it could have been a Fantastic Four story. I mean, Johnny Storm gets the Phoenix, or maybe Invisible Woman gets the Phoenix. The X-Men are always out of their brand. It's not like New Teen Titans, where you had Cyborg, Raven, Starfire, Nightwing, Wonder Girl, and Beast Boy. If you wanted to do sci-fi, you can organically do that because you have Cyborg on the team. If you want to do horror, you can organically do that because of Raven. Cosmic, Starfire. Duh. If you want to do crossovers and Legacy, you had Beast Boy there, Detective Work, Nightwing. And if you want the Teen Titans to fight Olympian gods, well, Wonder Girl is already there. It's built in. For the X-Men, you don't really have anything built into that. The X-Men tried, of course, to expand their brand by saying the Phoenix Force is attracted to mutants, and you had the mutant Skrulls that Charles Xavier hung out with, and trying to tie the brand to other parts of Marvel has been something of a hit or miss. I mean, yeah, you've had some cute little things here and there, like Kitty Pryde's Dragon and so forth. I think the Phoenix Saga, if it remains an X-Men thing, would work very well in the MCU because we've established this broader reality that the X-Men could play in, and knowing Kevin Feige, I think he would redo the X-Men Saga to be more mutant-centric without it having to be the crap we've seen so far in Fox movies. Anyway, let me know what you think. Was the X-Men the right story for the wrong team? Let me know in the comments below. And I apologize for being away for so long. Had to take a break, had to figure out the channel, had to figure out myself, and I'm working on my second graphic novel right now. And it's time for me to get lost.